Here's an interesting one. It's the new Peugeot e-Partner. It's kind of a small little van, good for a small business or something like that, and it's fully electric. But I think it's interesting for two main reasons. One is that it's an interesting concept, having a fully electric commercial vehicle, and two, it's actually quite terrible to use from day to day. It's terrible because of the range. It's got a 250 kilometer range roughly, depending on if you look at NEDC or WLTP, but you never really drive right down to zero. So the real range is about 200 kilometers before you start worrying, and you've got to prepare for your next journey. If you can charge this at home, and you've got solar panels on the roof, then they start to make a bit more sense. But if you're operating out of an apartment block or something like that where you're not allowed to charge electric vehicles, then this could become quite stressful doing your daily work. I've been using this to help me move house, so that the functionality is all just the same as the Peugeot Partner. So you've got twin sliding doors, nice flat loading area. This one's got the barn doors, side swinging, side hinged barn doors. And it's also got a fully molded rubber mat here, which I find quite handy because you can put, boxes and things and they don't slide about at all. And you've still got tie hooks anyway, so you can secure items in the back here nice and safely. Compared with the petrol model, the electric version does lose a bit of payload. So this is rated at 838 kilograms compared with 898 in the petrol model. The towing capacity is also reduced slightly for the electric version. But other than that, it is pretty much identical, including inside. This example's got the carpeted floor, but it does have fully molded rubber mats that are held in securely with these little tab block things. And then you've got a bit of wasted space around the center console here. You've got a little tub there, but all down the front, yeah, there probably could be some cup holders or something there just to utilize that space a bit more. But you do have a lot of little storage pockets and shelves and things. So you've got cup holders up there or bottle holders, a little shelf above the glove box, and then a glove box that doesn't actually have a door on it, which is a little bit annoying because even the logbook there, the manual doesn't even fit in the cavity. Everything is pretty much the same as the petrol model in here, including the gear selector system. It's all the same. You even have to use a conventional key to start it, which is quite weird because you put it in, foot on the brake, turn the key, and it just turns on, but it doesn't actually start, obviously. But yeah, it's the same system. They probably could just swap that to a button, I suppose, and make it a bit easier. You've also got a rear view camera as well, and a partially digital instrument cluster. You've got some options there to change what display you want. The biggest problem for me though is the range. 200 kilometers is just not enough for a vehicle like this. It's going to be working hard every day, delivering things. To have to charge it, multiple times a day, it just does not make sense. But in my opinion, the drive system isn't that efficient because I've driven various electric cars on the same sort of test route, and this one, say it's got 150 kilometers range written on the dash. I'll go for a nice drive, just not doing anything out of the ordinary, just driving completely normal, and I'll cover 50 kilometers. The range will drop down to 60 or 50 kilometers like it's done 100 kilometers. So it's almost double what it says it can do, which is just adds to that range anxiety feeling because you just don't know what the range is going to be after your next trip, for example. It's been great as a van. It's a good option for those looking for a little runaround that you still have a fair bit of space in the back, but the electric system just does not make sense. Making things worse, this is priced from $59,990, excluding on-road costs, and the petrol model is priced from around $40,000, excluding on-road costs. So that's a price difference of about $20,000. The official fuel consumption rating in the petrol model is 5.9 litres per 100 kilometres, and it has a 60 litre tank, which works out to be a theoretical range of about 1,000 kilometres. Even if you took the rating of 5.9 and bumped that up to 10 litres per 100 kilometres in the real world, say you're driving around the city a lot, you've loaded it up, 10 litres per 100 kilometres at a fuel price of about $2 per litre, that'll get you, $20,000 will get you 100,000 kilometres in driving. So it's definitely something you need to weigh up before considering something like this. If you don't do that many deliveries during the day, and you just want to have a nice little run around like this, and you've got a solar setup at your factory or something like that, and a decent charger, and you just want to use this just on the odd occasion or once a day, then yes, it can make sense. But still, that $20,000 price difference, you're going to be driving 100,000 kilometers in the petrol model before it starts to offset the price difference. If you are considering buying a new car, have you thought about a novated lease? These can be great if you've got a secure job and you're planning on staying there for a while, because they reduce your taxable income. I've got an article on our website that goes through some of the pros and some of the cons. I've linked it in the description of this video. Head over to our friends at Novated Lease Australia. They're linked up in the video and in the description. They can walk you through it step by step and work out a great deal for you. We'll go for a quick drive and then get into the performance testing. It does handle pretty good because the batteries are mounted under the body there, and it's got a very low center of gravity, and it's not too heavy for a commercial vehicle. It's about 1,600 kilograms, which is not too bad for an electric vehicle. Obviously there's not much to it. There's no cabin at the back per se, it's just a big boot, and then you've just got the 2 seats in the front. Just before we go for a drive, I've got to charge it again. I feel like I've charged this thing about 10 times, but it doesn't add up to how many kilometers I've done. So again, taking into account that it's got a 200 kilometer range, roughly, charging it 10 times would mean I've done 2,000 kilometers, but I haven't. I picked it up at 1,300 kilometers. It's now at 2,600, so 1,300 kilometers, but yet I've charged it that many times. Obviously I haven't taken it all the way down to 0 each time, but that gives you an idea of practical use. It's you're going to be charging it more often than every 200 kilometers. It's probably going to charge it every 150 or something like that, because you don't want to be stuck somewhere. The ePartner takes in a maximum of 100 kilowatts using a DC fast charger. This one here, the amp charge, that one's actually out of order, which is pretty common, is rated at 150 kilowatts, so I'm not able to get the most out of these specific chargers. It'll only take in 100, but if we look at the display, it's saying there 75 or 74.8, so it's not actually taking in even the full 100 kilowatt rating. On the dash here, you've got a little charging section of the touchscreen. It doesn't have all that much depth, and it doesn't actually show us how much we're taking in terms of the charging rate, but it does have some statistics there of your history, and you can also do some scheduling. These chargers here do cost some money to use. It's about 69 cents per kilowatt hour. This has a 50 kilowatt hour battery, so you can kind of figure out how much it costs to charge from absolute empty to absolute 100%. But it's still way cheaper than petrol. So petrol at the moment, on the big sign over there, looks like it's $1.89 for E10. This is going to work out to be much cheaper than that. Again, the petrol model, 60 litre tank, it's going to cost about $120 to fill, whereas this is going to work out to be well under 50 bucks. Another little annoyance that you have to sort of endure with electric vehicles at the moment in Australia, this charging plug, and I've found it on other systems too, not just the Ampol ones, it won't always connect. So in this particular car, it takes 3 times, or the third time it'll connect. All I do is plug it in. I have heard that if you push the plug right up against the system while it connects with the car, that sometimes helps because the cables start getting a bit worn. But yeah, do that, hold it in there, and then push start charging. It sends me a message, error, unable to start charging. Wait for the app to sort of reset, hit start charging again, does it again, and then the third time hit start charging without changing anything, without doing anything specifically different at all. Hit start charging and eventually it starts. I don't know why. It's not just this car though, because I've also had the Mustang Mach-E recently on the same charger, and it did the same thing where you just have to push it again, start charging, and then wait for it to have the error message, hit start charging again, then it will eventually start. Just a weird little thing you got to deal with, I guess. So that charged for about an hour and 14 or hour and 16 minutes, and it cost me $26. So you could calculate that on the petrol model. As we can see, it's about $1.89, but we'll just say $2 per litre for petrol, and it'll cost you $120 per tank, and say you get about 800 kilometers out of a tank. You're probably looking at realistically 800, even though theoretically you can get 1,000. And this is giving you 200. So times 26 by 4 and you're about $100, whereas the petrol model is $120. You're not saving that much really if you use these public stations. If you've got solar panels on your roof and you're able to charge it at home, it'll cost you way less. But again, you have to weigh up the cost of a charger installation and the solar panels. Once you weigh all that in, you know, it might not be as cost effective as you initially think. Definitely cheaper to run and could be better for the environment, minus the production and everything of digging the batteries up. There is definitely a good side to having an electric vehicle like this. But yeah, I don't think it's as cost effective as you may initially think, especially with that $20,000 premium above the petrol model. You do have a number of driving modes to select from, including a power mode. I'll just go over here for a second. You've also got normal and then eco. Eco mode does actually make a bit of a difference. And it says there, eco mode, performance and thermal comfort limited. And the range has jumped up from 282 to 296. That does make a fair bit of a difference. The aircon system isn't as, I've got it on the coldest setting at the moment, and it's just a bit weaker in this eco-efficient mode. But yeah, if you really want to maximize the range, select eco mode. It just means the throttle response is quite sluggish. Like I'm pushing the throttle about, that's halfway, and it's not even giving me the response that I'm after. But if you're just cruising along the highway, then yeah, eco mode can be good. Getting up to highway speeds, I've noticed there is a bit of a notch in the throttle, in the pedal down there. If you push it all the way, it goes past this little notch at the bottom, and I noticed the gauge gives you 100% power. But if you just floor it and you'll reach this little notch and it stops there, and that's the eco sort of setting. And then if you want maximum power, you just push the throttle all the way. But yeah, as an electric vehicle, it's obviously very quiet. I can hear a bit of wind noise around the mirror there, but it is it's not the most aerodynamic shape of vehicle, so you'd expect that anyway. You might not even hear that in the petrol model because it's got the engine and everything making a bit of a noise. Whereas in this, yeah, it feels much quieter. Ride comfort is pretty good, especially when you don't have anything in the back. But I have noticed loading it up, even with some general equipment that I had just moving house, which wouldn't have weighed that much, it feels like it bottoms out over bumps, or at least hits the bump stops, because it becomes quite rigid and bouncy. Whereas, yeah, with nothing in the back, it's pretty normal and quite nice. In terms of handling, yeah, it handles like a van. I actually don't mind driving vans just because of that great visibility out the front. And yeah, it seems pretty flat and neutral. Having that electric power right at your foot is pretty good as well, because you can come around corners and so on and just lean on the pedal and it will pick up straight away. There's no lag, except if you're in the eco mode. So I put it in power mode, leaving my foot at the same spot. Yeah, and just straight away, that I didn't move my foot then, and it gave me a lot more power with the same throttle application. Up steep hills like this, yeah, the petrol model, you'd probably kick down a few gears. I might not look that steep on camera, but it's quite steep. Whereas in this, I can slow right down, no cars behind me, and give it some power, and it picks up speed very easily. I've been thinking who else might buy this van. Apart from workers, where you've got a small factory or so on, I'm interested in mountain biking, so I actually would prefer something like this over a ute, because I can put my bike in the back and lock it up, so I can go to the shops or whatever, and my bike is securely in the back, and it's obviously protected from the weather. Whereas in a ute, you're exposing the bike to theft and things like that. Obviously you can get locks and all sorts of stuff like that, but with this, at least you can pack everything in the back, shut it all up, and it's all locked and safe. I'm not sure if anyone would buy this as a personal vehicle though. I think if you've got a big farm or something and you literally just want something to transport some goods from one end to the other, and you've got a solar panel on your roof and all that, and you've got a charger, you're going to use this a few times a day, just going back and forth, then yeah, it can definitely come in handy. And I think it is a reasonable option. But again, you've got to weigh up that cost especially that initial price, to see if it's worth it for you. All right, let's go out and do the performance testing now and see what it goes like.